If you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you my marriage was solid. Not perfect, sure, but whose is? We laughed, had routines, split bills, binged Netflix like clockwork, and kissed goodnight. I genuinely thought we were in a good place. We've been married for 7 years. No kids, by choice. She always said she wanted to wait until her career was in place. She works in brand consulting, mostly remote, but she'd travel to client offices once or twice a month. It always seemed legit. I didn't question it. I work in operations for a local manufacturer. Early mornings, long shifts. We had our rhythms. But lately, things shifted. It started with her silence. Not the quiet kind, the deliberate kind. The kind where you realize she's in the same room, but emotionally elsewhere. Her eyes stopped lingering on mine. Her laughs felt rehearsed. She was suddenly tired all the time, too tired to talk, too tired to go out, too tired to even watch our shows. But never too tired to stay up late texting on her phone after I'd fallen asleep. She started going out more. Networking events. Last-minute meetings. Hotel overnights for strategy workshops. Always with vague names and convenient signal drops. And when I asked for details, don't be paranoid. It's just work, babe. God, you sound like my father. I laughed it off. I trusted her. Maybe I was stupid for that. Maybe I was blind. But something didn't sit right. And the worst part was, I couldn't tell if it was her. Or if it was me. It happened on a Tuesday. Just an ordinary, forgettable Tuesday. She was in the shower, humming like nothing was wrong. Her phone was plugged in on the nightstand, a rare thing these days. Normally it was glued to her, like a second spine. But that morning, she must have been distracted. The screen lit up. I wasn't trying to snoop. Honestly. I just glanced. But I saw a name I didn't recognize. Evan, Studio. Followed by a preview of a message that made my stomach drop. Last night was wild. Still can't stop thinking about you in that mirror. My heart actually skipped. Like in a movie. I remember staring at that message, not moving. Just, frozen. At first, I convinced myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe he meant someone else. Maybe it was just, wrong. I didn't open the phone. I couldn't. I heard the water stop. She came out wrapped in a towel, singing softly. Her phone buzzed again. She picked it up, glanced at it, and didn't even flinch. Anything interesting? She asked casually. I shook my head. Lied through my goddamn teeth. Said I was just checking the time. That whole day, I felt like my skin was vibrating. Like there was a sound only I could hear. I went to work, but I wasn't there. My body was moving, but my mind was locked on one sentence. Still can't stop thinking about you in that mirror. That night, while she worked late again, supposedly reviewing a client's brand pitch, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her phone. I waited until she left it charging in the kitchen while she took a call on the balcony. She thought I was asleep. My hands were shaking the whole time. The password was her birthday. Inside. Texts. Pictures. Hidden albums. A locked folder named Studio Sessions. Photos I will never unsee. Videos that burned into my brain. Different hotel rooms. Different men. Same lies. Same smile. But the worst part? She was laughing in them. Like she was free. Like she was herself. Not the version she gave me. Not the one who forgot our anniversary last month. Not the one who said she was too tired to go to dinner. Not the woman who once cried in my arms when her dog died. This was someone else. This was someone I never knew. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there next to her, wide awake, staring at the ceiling like it might give me answers. Her breathing was soft. Peaceful. Like she had nothing to hide. Like she hadn't just shattered our marriage with 100 secret smiles and hotel sheets. I rehearsed what I'd say 1,000 times in my head. Should I yell? Cry? Ask questions? Demand names? Or just walk? In the end, it happened fast. I couldn't hold it in. The next morning, over coffee, she was scrolling her phone, the same phone I now knew was filled with lies. And I just said it. Who's Evan? She didn't even flinch. What do you mean? You know exactly what I mean. Evan. From the studio. And the mirror. She looked up then, and I swear to God, her expression didn't change. Not shock. Not guilt. Just irritation. Like I'd spilled something on her new rug. Why were you looking at my phone? She asked, voice low and tight. No denial. No, what are you talking about? Just immediate deflection. So it's true, I said. You're cheating on me. She stood up. Calmly. Walked to the sink. Took a sip of water. I'm not doing this, she said. You're being paranoid and invasive. If you're going to act like a controlling asshole, I'm not engaging. That word, controlling. It hit like a slap. Controlling. You've been sleeping with other men behind my back. I'm allowed to have friends. Is that what you call what I saw? Friends? Because I don't fuck my friends in hotel rooms and send them selfies from our goddamn kitchen. She rolled her eyes. Rolled. Her. Eyes. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. You overreact. You spiral. You don't understand the world I work in. No, I said. I understand it now. You live in a world of lies. She laughed, and said, you really think you're the victim? You work night shifts, come home smelling like metal and dust, and expect me to sit here playing the perfect little housewife forever? And just like that, the truth slipped through her teeth. I stared at her, every part of me screaming. My throat was dry. My fists were clenched. But I didn't yell. I whispered. You're not the person I married. And she smirked. Maybe you never really knew me. She walked out. Just like that. Keys, purse, phone, gone. I stood in that kitchen, heart pounding, body shaking, and finally understood. She wasn't sorry. She was done hiding. After she walked out that morning, something inside me just caved. It wasn't anger that hit me first. Not even sadness. It was a weird kind of silence. Like the world had muted itself. Like everything, the kitchen, the table, her half-empty coffee cup, was suddenly part of some cruel joke I hadn't been let in on. I sat down in the same chair where she had laughed just minutes before. The same place where I used to bring her tea on weekends, where we talked about our future, where she once told me I was her calm in the storm. Now all I could think about was that look she gave me. That blank, dismissive look. As if I was the burden. As if I was the problem. I started thinking about the months leading up to that moment, the slow drift I'd chosen to ignore. The business trips that never lined up with any receipts. The perfume I didn't buy her. The new lingerie that showed up out of nowhere. Her sudden obsession with privacy, with independence, with boundaries. I had called it stress. Burnout. Workload. I blamed myself for not being more present, not leveling up in my career, not being more exciting. But now I saw it for what it was. She had been slowly building a wall around herself while I stood on the other side, blindly handing her the bricks. She didn't just lie. She trained me to doubt myself. To feel guilty for asking questions. To be grateful for breadcrumbs of affection while she starved me of anything real. And the worst part? I let her. Because I loved her. Because I believed in her. Because I was the kind of man who shows up, not the kind who spies or accuses or digs through phones. I thought loyalty meant silence. She took that loyalty and crushed it. And now, all that was left was a mess of broken assumptions and a man who couldn't remember when his life stopped being his. The days that followed were a blur. Time didn't move the way it used to. Hours collapsed into themselves. Mornings felt like nights. Nights never ended. I stopped eating. Couldn't taste anything. Food felt like a lie in my mouth, much like everything else around me. I'd open the fridge, stare at shelves of untouched leftovers, and then close it again. She used to label containers with little notes. Now all of that felt like props in some play I didn't audition for. Sleep. That was gone too. I'd lie in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow, mocking circles. The empty space beside me wasn't just a reminder that she'd left, it felt like a void she'd been carving for months, maybe years. I started rewatching old videos on my phone, birthdays, vacations, even dumb little clips of us singing in the car. She looked happy in them. I looked like a man who didn't know he was drowning. Every smile from her, every inside joke, felt weaponized now. Like she had been playing a role the whole time and I was too naive to notice the performance. Worse, I started questioning everything about myself. Was I really that boring? Had I become dull, predictable, safe? Was I just a stepping stone in her life, something convenient until she outgrew me? I didn't talk to anyone. I couldn't. I was too ashamed. I didn't want pity, and I sure as hell didn't want advice. What could anyone tell me that would make this feel less like a demolition? At work, I was a ghost. I showed up, nodded through instructions, stared at conveyor belts without seeing anything. My coworkers noticed, I'm sure, but no one said a word. Maybe they thought I was just tired. Or maybe they recognized the look of a man whose world had caved in. There's a kind of madness that comes with betrayal. A slow rot. It eats from the inside out. And for a while, I let it. Because part of me didn't know who I was without her. And part of me didn't want to know. It started with a drawer. One of those little things you don't think about until you're spiraling, the top drawer of her desk in the office. We had once shared that space. Now I couldn't even walk into the room without feeling a weight on my chest. I wasn't looking for anything. At least, that's what I told myself. Maybe I was just hoping to find some old notebook, something innocent. A glimpse of the woman I married before she became a stranger. But what I found instead made my blood run cold. Tucked beneath a stack of old sketchpads was a second phone. An old one. Wiped on the surface, but still functional. Battery half dead. No lock screen. I should have put it down. I knew whatever I was about to find would burn a hole through whatever was left of me. But I didn't stop. Inside were photos. Hundreds of them. Her, but not the version I knew. No makeup-free selfies. No pet photos. No grocery lists. These were curated. Polished. Seductive. Different outfits. Different locations. Some in our home. Some in hotel rooms I'd never seen. Some I recognized from when she said she was at her sister's. The same men appeared in several of them. Different faces. Different smiles. But always the same pattern. Always her in control. Her hands on their shoulders. Her eyes locked on the camera like she owned it. Like she owned them. There were videos, too. Conversations. Recordings. One in particular made my knees buckle, a voice I recognized, laughing, asking her how she kept her husband so clueless. And her voice, calm, calculated, replied. I give him just enough to keep the guilt alive. I had to sit down. My ears were ringing. My hands were ice. Every breath felt like I was inhaling smoke. This wasn't just cheating. This was strategy. A long game. A parallel life that had been running alongside mine like a shadow. And all this time, I'd been the fool holding the light. I didn't expect to recognize anyone. That was the part that made me feel safest, in a sick way. As long as the men in those photos were strangers, faceless, distant, it still felt like her betrayal hadn't touched my actual world. But that illusion didn't last. It was photo number 32. A hotel room. Dim lighting. She was sitting cross-legged on a bed, sipping red wine, legs tucked under her, wearing a silk robe I'd never seen before. The man next to her was half in frame, laughing, a hand on her thigh. I zoomed in. And felt the bottom of my stomach disappear. It was Brent. A friend. Or at least, someone I'd thought was a friend. We worked together 2 years ago, not close, but enough to have beers after shifts. We'd had him over for dinner once. I remembered him complimenting her cooking. Her laughing a little too hard at his jokes. Back then, I didn't think anything of it. Now, I couldn't unsee the way he was looking at her in that photo, like they had a secret, like I was the punchline. I scrolled further, my heart pounding. There he was again. And again. Messages. Nudes. Him texting her from our house while I was in the garage fixing the damn dryer. One video started with him asking if I was home, followed by her laughter and a whispered, "He never hears a thing." I sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the phone like it might explode in my hand. My whole body felt hot, then cold, then numb. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't even manipulation anymore. This was a performance. She wasn't hiding from me, she was toying with me. Letting people into our lives, our home, our marriage, and letting them laugh behind my back. She wasn't just cheating. She was enjoying it. That's when something in me began to shift. Not rage, not yet. Something deeper. Colder. I realized I'd spent weeks mourning the woman I thought I lost. But now. I wasn't sure she had ever existed. It's strange how fast grief can turn into suspicion. Once you see someone clearly, truly, without the veil of love, everything they ever did takes on a new meaning. I started replaying moments in my head, but this time like a detective, not a husband. The accidental car insurance charges in my name. The random documents she'd asked me to sign for her business. Her sudden interest in joint credit cards after years of insisting on keeping our finances separate. It all felt like noise at the time. Background hum. Small couple stuff. Now it sounded like warning sirens. I started digging. Bank statements. Online accounts. I even ran a credit report. And what I found made my skin crawl. There were charges under my name I didn't recognize, hotel bookings I'd never made, subscription services I'd never heard of, even a business account tied to my tax ID, connected to a consulting firm registered under a P.O. box address 2 towns over. I followed the breadcrumb trail and found more than I was ready for. She had used my name to secure financing. Loans I didn't know existed. She had opened up lines of credit using my information, and she'd been using them for years. Quietly. Slowly. Just under the radar. All under the guise of brand building for her clients. I stared at the numbers. At the digital paper trail of betrayal. She hadn't just cheated with her body. She had been building something, a shadow business, using my identity as the foundation. I didn't even know what hurt more at that point, the humiliation of being cheated on, or the realization that the woman I thought I was building a future with had been actively constructing my collapse. And the most disturbing part? She had done it all with such ease. Casually. Strategically. Like it was a long con, and I had never been anything more than the perfect cover. This wasn't a crumbling marriage. It was premeditated erosion. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I had just finished sorting through another pile of paperwork, still trying to make sense of the mess she'd left behind, the forged documents, the ghost accounts, the slow financial bleed that wore my name like a mask. I was exhausted. Mentally, emotionally, physically. I hadn't spoken to her in a week. She hadn't called. Not to apologize. Not to explain. Nothing. Until that day. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated. Instinct told me to let it go to voicemail. But curiosity, or maybe something closer to self-destruction, made me answer. It wasn't her. It was a man's voice. Calm. Polished. A little too smooth. He asked for her by name. Then, without pause, he said something that made the air leave my lungs. She said we were meeting at your address at 3. I'm already downstairs. I didn't answer right away. I didn't know how to. My thoughts froze, like my brain was buffering. He went on, talking like this was completely normal, asking if I could let him in. That she usually had wine ready when he came by. That he always loved the lighting in her bedroom. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I walked to the window. Looked down at the street. Sure enough, a tall guy in a blazer was standing on the curb, phone in hand, pacing casually. He looked like someone out of a luxury real estate ad. Polished. Confident. And completely unaware that he had just stepped into the middle of something far uglier than he imagined. She had still been sending people to my house. Even after being confronted. Even after vanishing. Even after every lie had collapsed. She hadn't stopped. It wasn't shame that had kept her quiet. It was calculation. This wasn't just a double life. This was a system. A network. And my home wasn't mine anymore. It had become a stage for whatever persona she was selling. And I'd been sleeping on a set all along. After the call, I changed the locks. It felt symbolic at first, a desperate attempt to reclaim a space that had become a stranger to me. But as I packed her remaining things into boxes and set them near the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't just cleaning up a betrayal. I was erasing evidence of a double life I still didn't fully understand. I dug deeper. Using login info I remembered from her early days of building her consulting brand, I tried one of her old email accounts. To my shock, it worked. What I found was surreal. Dozens of email chains. Appointment requests. Calendars full of meetings that had nothing to do with branding or marketing. The subject lines were vague: private styling, one-on-one energy tour, design immersion, but the messages beneath them said everything. She had built an entire network. Clients, mostly men, paid thousands for exclusive design experiences, hosted in intimate residential spaces. There were notes on each one: likes, dislikes, budget, boundaries. Some of the notes were disturbingly personal. Not about color palettes or furniture. She had transformed our home into a premium backdrop. A rotating door disguised as luxury service. Some paid in crypto. Some left reviews. There were even follow-up messages from clients asking when they could book Veronica again. Veronica. Not her name. Not even close. She had a second identity, professionally maintained, carefully curated, tied to nothing legal, nothing trackable. And she'd been using it for years. I sat there in silence, staring at her signature. Veronica Reed Private Interiors, Private Experiences. A tagline that sounded harmless, until I saw what it really meant. The fake name. The secret business. The layered lies. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was someone else. Living two lives so seamlessly I never even noticed when mine stopped matching. There's something worse than finding out your partner has lied to you. It's realizing they didn't do it alone. After discovering the Veronica persona and the shadow business she'd built, I started thinking about all the people who had passed through our lives over the last few years. Friends. Acquaintances. Her clients. Mine. One name kept resurfacing in my mind, Lena. She was one of her closest friends. Stylish, loud, always one step ahead of the gossip. They'd met at some interior design expo years ago. Lena had been over at our house more times than I could count, drinking wine with her on the patio, showing off her latest luxury bag, laughing at memes I didn't understand. After everything broke, Lena stopped reaching out. I didn't think much of it at first. But then I remembered something, a conversation from months ago. I had mentioned something about how often my wife was traveling. Lena had paused, just for a second, and changed the subject. I hadn't noticed it then. I noticed it now. I called her. She didn't answer. I tried again. Left a message. Hours later, I got a single text. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to get involved. It hit like a punch to the chest. She knew. Maybe not the full extent, but she knew enough to stay quiet. To watch me smile through dinners. To watch me talk about weekend plans. To watch me praise a woman who had stopped loving me long ago. And she said nothing. I asked her one question. How long? Her reply was instant. Almost 2 years. That was it. No apology. No remorse. Just confirmation. 2 years. 2 years of my life spent loving someone who had already left me in every way that mattered. 2 years of walking beside people who were looking at me with pity and keeping secrets. It wasn't just her betrayal anymore. It was the world she built around it, the circle of silence, complicity, and artificial smiles. And I had lived right in the center of it. Betrayal hurts. But betrayal backed by legal documents? That's a whole different kind of violation. I had already found enough, the burner phone, the email account, the alias, the business. But something still didn't add up. Money was missing. Not just from our shared account, but from my personal savings, the one I had before we even got married. It was small, something I rarely touched. Emergency fund, you know. It shouldn't have been accessible to her. But it was. I dug into old files. Started pulling statements. Then I saw it, my signature. Or rather, a copy of it. Stamped across withdrawal forms, agreement letters, even a couple of property-related documents I had never laid eyes on. She'd used my name. She'd used it to apply for loans, to create a shell business, to sign short-term leases under both our names. Places I never stepped foot in. But my name, my social security number, was all over them. I was tied to her game in ways I never consented to. I contacted a lawyer. He looked over everything, scanned through the PDFs, the bank statements, the notary stamps. His first question wasn't what happened. It was. Do you have reason to believe she was planning something bigger? Because from a legal standpoint, this wasn't just fraud. It was orchestrated identity theft wrapped in the illusion of marriage. I didn't know how to answer. Had she planned to burn me financially? Walk away and leave me holding the bag? It started to feel that way. And suddenly, so many of her past words made sense. Don't be so dramatic. I'll handle the paperwork. You don't need to read all that. She wasn't just lying to me emotionally. She was strategically erasing me while leaving my name on every liability. And I realized something chilling. I hadn't just lost my marriage. I had become a liability in someone else's story. I thought I was nearing the end of the nightmare. I thought I had seen the worst of it, the cheating, the secret identity, the financial destruction. But I was wrong. A few weeks after I started the legal process, freezing accounts, initiating fraud claims, speaking with my lawyer daily, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a phone call. An actual envelope, hand-delivered to my mailbox. Thick paper. Official letterhead. It was from a private psychiatric clinic. Inside was a statement, a professional concern, supposedly authored by a licensed psychiatrist who claimed my wife had expressed fear for her safety, citing increasing volatility and emotional instability from me during the final stages of our relationship. It was carefully worded. Not accusatory, but implicating. As if planting the seed for a future court case. Maybe custody. Maybe reputation. Maybe to throw doubt on anything I said going forward. I'd never seen the name of the doctor. I had never been violent. Never raised my voice in any way that could be spun into a threat. But there it was, documented, signed, sealed. She had preemptively framed me. Laid the groundwork to paint herself as a victim in case the truth ever surfaced. It was pure strategy. And the sickest part? It worked. My lawyer warned me, if this goes public, even if it's all false, it muddies everything. It's classic manipulation, she's setting up the narrative before you even tell your side. I was furious. Not just because of the lie, but because she had anticipated the fallout months ago. While I was still bringing her coffee in bed, she was getting fake psychiatric assessments written to defend herself from me. I wasn't her husband. I was her exit strategy. There are moments in life when the air around you seems to stop moving, like time holds its breath. That's what it felt like when I saw his name. It was buried in the paperwork my lawyer had requested, hidden in a filing connected to the fake consulting firm registered under my credentials. It was listed as a silent business advisor. A single line. Almost unnoticeable. But it hit me like a punch in the ribs. Jason K. 3 years ago, I had fired him from the warehouse I worked at. He was erratic, always late, and had been caught skimming inventory. When we confronted him, he got aggressive. I was the one who filled out the report that got him blacklisted from several jobs in the area. He never forgave me. Said I destroyed his life. And now, his name was tied to my wife's secret company. A man who shouldn't even know her. A man who had every reason to want revenge. It didn't make sense at first, but when I looked closer, it all fell into place. The timing. The money. The persona she had created. Jason had been feeding her the blueprints. How to use my name. How to slip under legal radar. How to orchestrate a fall without touching the ground herself. She hadn't just cheated. She had been recruited. I don't know when they met. Maybe it was chance. Maybe he found her online. Maybe she sought him out, or maybe he recognized the resentment already growing in her, and offered her a way out, with benefits. All I know is that this wasn't random. It was personal. It was revenge. Not just from her, but from a man I thought I had left in the past. A man who had waited in the shadows, feeding poison to my marriage one whisper at a time. And I had never seen it coming. It's been 6 months since everything collapsed. Since I stood in a home that was never really mine. Since I stared into the eyes of a woman I thought I knew, and realized she had been gone for a long time. She never apologized. Never explained. Never showed up in court. Through my lawyer, I learned she'd moved out of state under her alias. The company was shut down quietly. Jason disappeared, no trace. Not a single word from him. He got what he wanted, my life in ruins. I spent weeks putting out fires, proving fraud, clearing debts, rebuilding my credit. I was fortunate to have documented everything, and even more fortunate to find a lawyer who believed me. It wasn't easy, but I untangled myself, mostly. But you can't unburn a house, even if you sweep the ashes. There are still nights I wake up unsure of where I am, unsure if I'm still in it. Sometimes I hear her laugh in my dreams. Not the warm laugh, the other one. The one I found on her second phone. But I'm healing. Slowly. Quietly. I've learned more than I ever wanted to. That love without honesty is a prison dressed as paradise. That some people will look you in the eye while they calculate how to gut you. That loyalty can become a leash if you offer it to the wrong hands. Most of all, I've learned that trust is not a virtue, it's a risk. And you need to be damn sure who you're placing that bet on. So if you're reading this, and something feels off in your relationship, don't ignore it. The gut never lies. People do. I lost years of my life to someone who used me like scaffolding. But I'm still standing. Still rebuilding. Brick by brick. Without her. Without them. And this time, with my eyes wide open.